Yahashiman, Luiseno nations, or Juaneño band of Mission Indians, and that they are still inhabited by their descendants today. These indigenous peoples understood and still understand our interconnectedness with all life forms and continue to give guidance for how we treat our land. Thank you. Back to you, Fran.
Thank you, Jocelyn. So Climate Reality, we are part of a much larger group. We are, our chapter, of course, is 383 plus chapter members. We have 700 people on our mailing list, over 48,000 global members. Our organization was started by former Vice President Al Gore, who's still very much involved. And we participate in education and presentations to spread the climate message, green living. We have a youth action team. We support green business in our communities and also media and communication. We also work with state and regional chapters, and we also do some outdoor activities. So that's us in a nutshell, basically. But it's 2024, and we're asking everyone to help us take bold action this year, to join our leadership team. Let us know what your interests are in the chat. As I mentioned, we have a green living community and committee. We have a policy committee, communications and social media. We take city climate action. We also have an entertainment committee. So please, any of those things that you might be interested in, please let us know in the chat. Also, we're asking everyone to help us reach out to new audiences. We do go to schools, we go to all sort of organizations that are interested in having their members hear our climate message. We're here to inform others and to address the climate crisis. And we really would like to reach out to more and more people in this very important time. We are a non-political organization, and it's important that people know that so that they understand that our message is not about politics, but really about the science that supports the knowledge about climate change. So if you have any friends or organizations that you know might be interested in having us come and do a presentation, please let us know. We recently, we do presentations to all age groups. Marilyn was in a kindergarten class last month. We were also at Laguna Woods, which is a senior living community. And I believe Orange County OCPA did a presentation there just yesterday. And also there's a picture there of Marilyn and Jocelyn at Leisure World. So we run the full gamut from 5 years old on up. So any organization that might be interested in hearing this really important message, please let us know. We have quite a few trainers that have gone through the national training that would be able to do a presentation. Also, we have several events coming up in the next month. So if you are interested in the presentation, please, in volunteering for one of our things, please let us know. You can leave it in the chat if you can volunteer, or you can register now in a Sign Up Genius link that Jocelyn is going to put in the chat, or you can check our website for sign up. But we do have several tabling activities going on this month. Cool Irvine, Pretend City. Once again, we're covering the gamut. Pretend City is for 1 to 8-year-olds and their families, and as well as doing our plastics lessons at Surfriders Beach cleanups. So please take a moment and go in and see if there is any tabling event that you would be able to volunteer for. So we do have upcoming events this month. Here's the list of them. May 18th, we've decided not to do this first one for tomorrow. We didn't have any, Saturday, we did not have any volunteers. And we are also doing one on June 1st. But we will be having the Green Living Committee on online meeting at 5:30 on May 23rd. Once again, we'll be doing the tabling and plastics lesson for Surfrider beach cleanups in Bolsa Chica at Warner and PCH. That is a really, what we do is we talk to people who have just finished picking up a whole lot of plastic, and we talk to them about where that came from, how it was created, what we can do about it, and what they can personally do about it. It's a really, what we say is, as a former teacher, we call it a teachable moment. They've just filled their bag with a whole lot of things made out of plastic that just never go away. So also on June 5th, World Environmental Day, we will be tabling at Pretend City, which will be a family event. On June 7th, we will be having a First Friday climate demonstration at 17th and PCH in Huntington Beach. So the first Friday of the month, we do a demonstration there just to let people know that climate is still an issue. We are still here, and they need to be aware of it. Also on June 15th, we are doing a tabling event with Cool Irvine Eco Fair. We definitely need people to volunteer for that event as well. Our next chapter meeting will be on June 20th, and then on June 22nd, the Orange County Interfaith Coalition for the Environment contacted us for us to table and also collaborate with a lot of other climate groups in the area. So any of those would be great for you to volunteer for. You do not need to have any experience. You just need to have a good attitude, be looking for like-minded, friendly people, and help us share the climate message. We do have monthly events, tabling and plastic lesson with Surfrider. We try to do those every month, and also our climate demonstration. So just doing a shout out to all of our partnerships in the Orange County area. One of the things we do at Climate Reality is support other climate organizations. These are the ones we currently partner with. OC Goes Solar, Cool OC, Surfrider Foundation, Citizens Climate Lobby, BCL, Green Schools Campaign, Green Businesses, Reform and Sustain, Climate Parents, California Coalition of all the Climate Reality chapters, and the National Coalition as well. In addition to that, we continue to support Orange County Power Authority, certainly in the 4 cities where they are currently operating and providing opportunity for renewable energy. If your city is not one of the 4 listed, please ask your city to join. That is exactly what was happening in Laguna Woods today. Laguna Woods was interested in finding out about how they could look at more renewable energy. And so that's an example of what can happen. The Orange County Power Authority can come out and talk to your city and groups. Okay, committee updates. So let's hear quickly from a few of our committees. We do want to make sure that we're able to start promptly at 7 o'clock. So we've got about 12 minutes before 7. So Green Living Committee, you're on.
Okay, I will represent the Green Living Committee and try to make it quick. So Huntington Beach is on there because we have a little focus in that city for green business. The California Green Business Network certifies businesses as green businesses at the city level, which requires city funding. And Huntington Beach City was allocated funding for part of 2023 and 2024. And so we were able to contract with senior sustainability consultant Sandrine Cassidy, who is great. And she has been recertifying existing green businesses in the city. And we, as a team, are recruiting new ones. And she's helping us with that. So we've made outreach to 28 businesses in Huntington Beach, and 4 of those have certified to date. And that's good because our goal as a committee was 6 businesses to be certified. So we hope to blow that goal out of the water. We also launched National Day Without Plastic in the Orange County chapter. That was an inaugural participation in the national event, encouraging people to go one full day with using no single-use plastics. So participants who committed to a zero plastic day could enter to win a gift certificate, which was awarded to a lucky family. And they are hopefully, maybe they've already used it at Amis Del Terra. I'm not sure if they have yet, but we're going to find out all about that store here shortly from Chris and Jessica. Back to you. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa, and I co-chair the Green Living Committee with, oh, you.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'll fix that just a second.
Thank you. So, yeah, I co-chair the Green Living Committee with Jocelyn, and then I also chair the Policy Committee. So on policy, I just have a couple quick updates for you and some actions that you can do this week. So there is an interesting proposed constitutional amendment called ACA 16, and we are hoping to get that on the ballot. And it is very simple, 15 words that would add to our Constitution that the people shall have a right to clean air and water and a healthy environment. And the reason for this is apparently, although California is usually a trailblazer when it comes to environmental initiatives, we are actually behind. There are states that have had similar language in their constitution for decades. And so this is also sort of seen as a way to preserve in case we unfortunately have a horrible change of federal government that threatens a lot of our environmental protections, that this is a way that we can hold on to some of our strong environmental initiatives in California. So in order to qualify for the November ballot, this has to be through both houses in the legislature by a date in June, like it's coming up quick. So so we need your help in contacting both your assembly persons and your senators to encourage them to vote yes for ACA 16. And while you are on the email and the or the phone to your assembly representatives, also tell them to vote yes on AB 1999 and AB 1866. So AB 1999 is the one that we've heard a lot about, the utility fee. We've had Kaylee Underhill at our meeting several times talking about that initiative. It has, this AB 1999 has went through a very torturous process, and many feared a week or so ago that it was dead. But it has been resurrected. It successfully made it through policy committee yesterday. So hopefully it will be heading soon for a floor vote in the assembly. So encourage your representative to vote for that. And then 1866 is the for cleaning up abandoned oil wells. So I will put some info in the chat, and if you have any questions about, how to figure out who even your, assembly representative is, just send me a message. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes before we move on to our presentation, so I'm going to go quickly. City climate action. We spoke at city council meetings and continue to do that, to meet with city officials regarding climate action in Orange County. For instance, a few of us were talking about in our own city about whatever happened to our sustainability plan. And as they mentioned today, speaking in Laguna Woods about OCPA. So if you would like us to talk about a climate related action in your city, at your city, please contact us and let us know. Danny, would you like to say anything about entertainment?
Well, we're going back to Veg Fest this year.
Yep.
On October 26th and 27th. And so we'll need people to table at that event. I'm one of the organizers for planning. I'm part of the planning committee of Veg Fest, and they've already asked us if they would like to speak at the speakers table this year. So if anybody's interested in that, please let me know. Also on May 29th, there's going to be an electrification event at the Rivian in Laguna Beach. It was spearheaded by Ginger and Tom of CCL. And so you go on to Rivian's website and register for that event. I think it'd be fun. I was at one recently, and we had a great time. And it's a fun place. So come down and see us. That's all.
All right. Thanks, Danny. In Maryland.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marilyn Palomino, and I'm not going to read this list of climate outreach to you because a lot of it's already been covered, and I think that you know what we're about. But I did want to mention that on the second bullet, it says that several education sessions were hosted, and they're online. And the Ask the Sean show is really good. It's about how to electrify your house. And so you can even like take pictures of, maybe your water heater, your heater, whatever you're interested in doing. And you can actually get advice from Sean on how to go about maybe putting in a heat pump or something like that. So it's really helpful. He's talked about inverter stovetops and things like that. Also, Tristan actually hosted several podcasts last year that were really interesting. The first one ever, I think, was about climate careers. And so we don't just go out into the communities, but we also are in the online community and try to do what we can. And since our main goal is to educate people, we're very interested in also reaching out to frontline communities because environmental justice means everyone. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind. In fact, we do have a grant with through OCPA that we're going to use to help to reach out to frontline communities. And I think everything else pretty much has been covered. We do, on those beach cleanups, we do team up with Surfrider. And it's just, it's a good marriage because they're
Well,
basically, you know, where they're teaching through having people actually clean up the beaches, but then we try to extend their learning. And so we can use all the help we can get.
yes.
So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody. And for people who are just coming in now and haven't heard about us before, that tells you a little bit about what we do. We're excited about what we do. We want to continue to reach out more and more. So please, if you haven't been with us before, please leave your information in the chat and we'll make sure that you get information about what we're doing. So on to our guests for the evening. We have two wonderful guest speakers. We're joined by two PhDs, a husband and wife team. Through their love of the ocean and the outdoors, they became aware of the damage caused by human runoff into the ocean, specifically plastics. Jessica Walden and Chris McGuire obtained their PhDs from UCI's Earth System Science Department. They've studied and researched the impacts of human runoff and coastal biochemistry in the Southern California waters. And this inspired them to open Amis Del Terra. My French accent is way off there. It's a zero waste market in Costa Mesa. It was the first zero waste market in Orange County. And that provides an opportunity for the community to purchase groceries without plastic packaging. And also they promote environmental education, like tonight, meaningful legislation, and local nonprofits like us. So welcome to both of you. I will share my screen with you.
Wonderful.
Hang on just a sec. Okay. Nope. Let me see. Do I stop my share?
I think you just, yeah, you just stop yours and then that'll
Okay.
enable us to share ours.
Okay. Let me see. Sorry about that. I'm not seeing how to stop my share.
There
Oh,
should
there.
be like a red button.
I see the red button, but I'm still sharing. There it is. Stop share. Different red
There we go.
button. Okay. Now
All
I'll
right.
share.
Perfect. Okay, we'll bring up our presentation.
Okay.
There we go. All right, perfect. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for having us on today. It's an honor to be here. And we just love sharing what we do and engaging with like-minded communities. So today what we're going to be talking about is plastics, kind of a brief history, kind of where we're at in the world today as far as plastics are concerned, and then kind of looking out at some projections into the future, where it looks like we're going, and how we can kind of stifle that trajectory and hopefully rebound to a better place. So first of all, just a little background on us. Like we said during the introduction, we are a husband and wife small business owners here in Costa Mesa. Our shop is called Amis Del Terra Zero Waste Market. Amis Del Terra is French for Friends of the Earth. We are green business certified. In addition to that, we participate with the North Orange County chapter of Surfrider, and doing a bunch of community outreach for them and trying to just engage at all the beach cleanups that we can, and be a part of their kind of legislative outreach as well, leveraging our experience as scientists. So I'll let my wife Jessica kick it off.
Okay, well, I'm Jessica. I Could just say that I started my plastic hatred journey as a Newport Beach junior lifeguard back in the early 2000s. And that led me to be a marine biology major at UC Santa Cruz. And then I followed that into a master's program in Paris. And I got a master's degree in oceanography and marine environment. And that led me to UC Irvine, where I got the Earth System Science degree and met Chris.
Yep. And then as far as me, my journey, I guess, started a little bit later. I was in the military for nearly a decade, traveling the globe, and I really got to see firsthand how poorly we have taken care of our planet. We think we have it bad in our own backyard. There are some places that are absolutely hideous. And, you know, a lot of that is on our shoulders because we offload a lot of our waste and it ends up in some pretty crazy places. So yeah, so after that, I decided I wanted to make a positive impact. I wanted to study the climate. So I joined UCI's Earth System Science Department, where I kind of took the full ride. I did my undergraduate there, got master's en route to PhD, and then just wrapped up the PhD last September. Yeah. So like we said, we kind of focused on coastal oceanography. A lot of our work was looking at urban runoff or agricultural runoff and how the nutrients and other things affected the base of the food chain. But then if we kind of look at some of the things that we were seeing, these are actual images of some of the work that we were conducting. Spent a lot of time on microscopes, and we couldn't look at a single water sample that we found in our coastal waters here without finding microplastics. And these are microplastics that you can see can very readily be confused with the biology that's in our waters. We look at it and we can say, oh, well, that's obviously something different. But for a lower level species, like a zooplankton or fish, it's very easy for them to confuse these plastic particles with the plankton that's floating there. So in the left panel, you can see some Serratium phytoplankton, kind of looks similar to that piece of blue plastic there. And then the same with the panel on the right there. So thinking about taking it even further back and then the origins of plastic, I don't think anything kind of spells out the trouble that we were bound to run into than you know, the early 40s and 50s and 60s ad campaigns. So if you look at this first panel on the left, we can see plastics as American as apple pie, right? And every single thing in that picture is plastic. The plate is plastic. The cup is plastic. Chances are the countertop that he is resting on is plastic as well. So they really were pushing hard for it to take over every aspect of our lives ever since its inception, really. That second panel there, every time I see this picture, I just think to myself, foreshadowing. If these babies only knew the amount of plastic that they'd be surrounded by as they grew up, it's just insane. They're encased in it. And here we are in 2024, and we're absolutely encased in it ourselves, right? Another thing in that image that I just can't help but to kind of frown at is that baby in the middle is actually chewing on his rattle, right? And we can only assume that rattle is made out of plastic. And we know at this time, we really had no regulation on plastic. So it's probably full of a ton of nasty chemicals that parents today wouldn't want in their children's bodies. Kind of moving into the 60s and 70s for panel 3, we can see that they're really starting to push disposables, right? All plastic disposable cups. In the caption at the bottom, it says this plastic cup, it's a plastic cup at toss away prices. So at this point, they're really encouraging the waste of this product. And then it's only gotten kind of stronger. They've gotten better at hiding all these things in ads, but boy, they were really blatant back in the day. So if we think about the way back, when plastic first came into industry. Leo Bakelin, a Belgian chemist, patented fully synthetic plastics in 1907. It was marketed as Bakelite. These plastics contained absolutely no natural molecules found in the natural environment. And originally it was just a combination, or very simple combination, of formaldehyde, which is, we know today, very, very toxic. We worked with it as scientists, and we had to wear a ton of PPD when we would handle this stuff. And then the other thing that went into it was phenols. Phenol is not as crazy as formaldehyde, but can irritate skin, affect your nervous system, and stuff like that. So originally it was designed to be used as insulation for electrical wiring, as we were trying to electrify the globe and America. But we've really kind of taken a turn with what we use it on today. So pushing forward on that timeline, we can see you know, the kind of first quote unquote plastics were really developed in 1284. However, it wasn't fully synthetic. These were made from horn shavings, and they were used to make things like combs and other everyday reusable items. After 1900, we really started to ramp up, and about every decade, we were developing a new type of plastic that we used. Once we get into you know, the late 1940s, the 1950s, there's a big push on moving from long-term use products to single-use products. So in 1950, we can see that polyethylene bags make their first appearance. In 53, HDPE and PET in 73. So these are all the things that we see today that most of our population is using once and then discarding. So if we want to quantify this, we can see in 1950, there's about half of a million metric tons or a megaton of plastic produced throughout the globe. By 1964, we bumped that number up to 15 million metric tons. And then in 2007, we can see at the end of the chart there, we have 320 million metric tons. Moving on to today, the global estimates for plastic production last year for 2023 was 450 million metric tons. It's kind of hard to quantify that, but just a side note, half of the plastic that's ever been produced in the globe has been produced within the last 14 or 15 years, so since 2010. So kind of crazy to think about. As far as this unit is concerned, you know, who can imagine what a million metric tons is, right? So to put that kind of into perspective, there is an offshore oil rig. They've actually moved it, so I'm not very sure. I think it's like off of Scandinavia at the moment, but it's called the Troll A, and this is the biggest man-made object that has ever been movable, that's ever been created, all right? And this entire thing only weighs 1.1 million metric tons or megatons, okay? It's twice as big as the Empire State Building, and substantially larger than the Eiffel Tower. So if you can kind of picture those things and think about stacking, so for the Empire State Building, if you think about stacking 1,000 Empire State Buildings, that's the amount of plastic that we produced this last year. So these are literal mountains of plastic that we're generating each year, and it's ever increasing. So if we look back to 2019, this is data that was supplied by the EPA. It kind of shows roughly 350 million metric tons of plastic being produced. Of that entire quantity, only 9% was actually recycled. And this is a pretty conservative estimate. There's been reports that came out later from independent research communities, suggesting that it's probably closer to 5% and not this 9%. About 19% of the plastic that's produced has been incinerated or burned in order to create energy in poorer regions of the world. And for the longest time, they actually considered this burning of plastic as recycling, saying, you know, we're using it for something. And if you've ever kind of followed what's happening to the veterans at the moment who have been near burn pits in combat zones, it's absolutely horrible for your health. So these people are being subjected to some horrible chemicals in the air. It's a real serious issue in regards to environmental justice. About 49%, so roughly half of that plastic that's being produced is ending up in the landfill. And then almost a quarter of it is being mismanaged and then ending up in our natural environment. So whether that be on our streets, in our ecosystems, running off and out into the oceans. If you haven't heard about the issues in all the major ocean basins with plastic accumulating in the center of the gyres, it's a crazy issue. And unfortunately, it doesn't just stay there. It has ways of making it back to us. Kind of, we'll discuss that coming up in the next handful of slides. But looking at this chart, you can see that it's only projected to get worse. These numbers are increasing. The amount of plastic that we're producing is ever increasing. It's a big money business, and people want to capitalize on that. And the figures aren't getting a whole lot better, right? While recycling looks like it might increase in the future, I would argue that a 17% rate of recycling is still atrocious, considering we're planning out and expecting this 35 years from now. Incineration looks like it's going to remain about the same. What's going to the landfill is going to be the same percentage. Mind you, it's a much larger quantity. And the only thing it looks like that we're going to reduce is what's getting mismanaged. But we'll see if that comes to fruition. Looking at it by class, so the last slide, we were just looking at plastics in general. We can see that if we break it up into the different classes of plastic, some things have better odds of being recycled than others. Probably the best thing that we do as far as recycling is those PET substances, or, you know, usually it's your drink bottles and stuff like that. So a lot of the stuff that has a CRV value ends up having a little bit higher recycling rate, but I would argue 15% is nowhere near where we need to be. And then everything else is just horrible. We got 3% for all the polyethylene, for polypropylene as well. And for polystyrene, we're down to 2%. And if you've ever been on a beach cleanup, most of what you see and one of the hardest things to clean up is that polystyrene. It breaks down into those little tiny balls. And half the people that go to these beach cleanups, they scour the beach, and it doesn't even register that these little pieces of polystyrene are actually what they're looking for. You know, a lot of people are out there, they're looking for bottle caps and larger pieces, but a lot of this stuff kind of just slips through our fingers in the efforts that we make out there to address these issues. You know, why are these recycling rates so, you know, crazy low? And it really boils down to an issue of economics, okay? Recycling plastic just as a process and from a business standpoint is relatively expensive and extremely inefficient. You have to collect the material. That material needs to be cleaned. If it's not clean, chances are it's going to foul the loads and just end up in a landfill anyway. You need to sort through that material. So you need to separate the ones from the twos, from threes, and so on. And that's relatively difficult. You know, a plastic bottle looks like a plastic bottle. A clear bottle looks like a clear bottle, and it could be made out of you know, 2 or 3 different types of these plastics. And then in the end, you have to process it and turn it into a material that can then be used as the new raw materials for the next product that you plan to make. And each one of these steps is extremely energy intensive. You have to put a lot of electricity, you got to put a lot of man hours, you got to pay a lot of money in order to make this system work. So what's the answer? And what's currently being done is we are using virgin plastics. We are using the crude oil-based feedstock, extracting oil, using that fresh product just to build plastics from scratch, because it's much cheaper. It's readily available. We're out there. We are pilfering the earth for this black gold, and you know, the flow isn't slowing down. So the material is there. If you can make a new product for cheaper, and these billionaires can rake in more and more money, they're going to execute the method that maximizes their profits. And unfortunately, it has horrible consequences for the future of our planet. So if we think about how things are kind of run right now, we think about a linear production model where we are taking these raw materials, putting it into production, creating a material or creating a product, distributing that product, and then that ends up with the user. The user, you know, in the case of, for instance, a water bottle, they drink their, you know, 250 mils of water out of their single water bottle, and straight into the trash can that goes. And then chances are it's going to end up in the landfill, or many times, you know, if it's at a park and it's thrown into a trash can, a lot of times that trash can overflows, it's mismanaged, it's not taken care of properly. Now that bottle ends up on the sidewalk, then it ends up off the curb, then it ends up in the drainage, out to a river, out to the ocean, where it becomes, you know, leakage and pollution. So in contrast to that, if we want to eliminate this waste and leakage, we need to really kind of shift to a circular production model where we create those products get distributed, a user uses those products, and then upon disposal, those items are recaptured and brought back into the system in order to use those as fresh materials for new products. But if we kind of look at those arrows on the top, it also requires energy, so it's not cheap. There's ways that it requires less energy than others. So say we dispose of a bottle, like in the instance of glass, right? If you drink a glass bottle of Coca-Cola, you recycle that bottle doesn't get broken down, it gets returned to the factory in some places, and then just refilled with that product again, and then sent right back out to the consumer. So that bottle doesn't need to be remade. In other instances, we take a little bit more energy and we remanufacture or refurbish something. This you might think of as like some laptops or some cell phones, where something goes wrong inside of that item. It's no longer useful to the user that has it at the time, but it can be sent back to the manufacturer, where whatever was wrong with it can be fixed, and then it can be resold again. And then the one that kind of requires the most energy is recycling, where we kind of tear that product all the way down to its raw material, and we make something entirely new. If we look at the bottom of this graphic and we think about intensifying use or dematerialization, we're thinking about, as a user, retaining it yourself. So never really disposing it. And this is kind of what our business really thrives around. So if you think about going to the grocery store and you buy peanut butter in a little glass jar, instead of taking that glass jar, putting it in a recycling bin and putting it through one of those energy inputs, you retain that glass jar and you take it to a store and you refill it with peanut butter yourself. You're using it longer, and you're not putting in all that extra energy to transport it to these other places. You're kind of keeping it in your own circle. And as far as energy is concerned, that's kind of the best practice. So that's what we support, and hopefully it kind of becomes the way of the future. If we think about what plastic is made up, a few slides ago, I talked about it being made up of phenol was one of the components of the original plastic. It's kind of what we use today as well. This is just pulled briefly off of Wikipedia. It's a quick breakdown, but it really kind of sends it home. Today, it's produced at large scales. It's petroleum-derived feedstocks, very important as an industrial commodity, and a precursor to many of the things that we use today. Primarily used to synthesize plastic. So if we think about where this is coming from, plastics originate from the fossil fuel industry. So if we look at an oil barrel, we can see that we don't just use crude oil and toss it in our car as it is to make our car run, right? We have to process it. And the process that we use is called fractional distillation, where we heat that oil up to a very, very high temperature. And then as it travels through a column, it's cooled to varying degrees. And different components of what's in the crude oil is going to separate out. Some of that is going to be diesel fuel. Some of it's going to be the fuel that you put in your car. Some of it's going to be liquefied gas. Some of it's going to be like really heavy stuff that they use to power like cargo ships and very large generator engines, power facilities. But a lot of it ends up in this this residue pipeline that you can see on that left-hand panel, or if you look at the barrel, they just refer to it as other products. And if you ever look, you can look at any oil company's kind of breakdown of what their partitioning is, and they always kind of refer to it as just like, oh, other. You know, they never say like plastic things. You know, they're really afraid to actually address what this turns into, because you know, we're storing our food in plastic. We're putting all these things that are very important to us in plastic, and they really want to separate that in your mind. They don't want you to associate it with the fact that it's oil, right? So looking at these other products, we can kind of see what they make it into. They make it into consumer products. They make it into our clothes. So if your clothes are made out of synthetic material, polyester, nylon, a bunch of other things, that is oil derived. Single-use utensils and cups, oil derived. Ice chests, the casing is hard thermoplastic, and the interior is going to be that polystyrene. But it's not all bad. It's not all single use. There are some very, very good uses for these plastics as well. We just need to be particular about where we use it. So your laptop is made out of a lot of plastic. There's a lot of plastic in your car. So there is reasonable uses for it, but a lot of them are pushing towards single use, because as soon as you get rid of it, now you need another one, and you're buying more and you're purchasing more, and they're generating more, and it makes them money, right? Ends up in a lot of other things too. It's in a ton of cosmetics. So your lipsticks, nail polishes, a lot of deodorants and lotions. And they're also putting it in your food. So a lot of artificial sweeteners are made out of petroleum-derived products, food coloring. So those red dyes and those yellow dyes that we're all trying to stay away from now, petroleum-derived, and a lot of preservatives as well. But it's not just the plastic that we're concerned about when we're thinking about these manufacturing processes, right? There's a lot of other things. that give these plastics the properties that they want. So they're adding additives to retain polymer structure, to enhance flexibility, to resist them catching on fire. They're adding things to help them in the manufacturing process, like catalysts and solvents, lubricants. Lubricants is a big one. That's the big one used forever was PFAS. And now we know, yeah, that's a forever chemical, and we're all trying to stay away from that, but it's in pretty much every plastic product. Even if it says like PFAS free, there's really no such thing as PFAS free. There's products that have like no additional PFAS, but PFAS is kind of one of these chemicals that's, you know, it's a series of chemicals that are inherent to the production of plastics. So all these other chemicals that get added during the process, there's greater than 10,000 of these substances. About 25 or 2,400 of them are already identified as chemicals of concern, either because they are persistent in the natural environment, they bioaccumulate, or they're toxic in some way, shape, or form. A huge percentage of these are inadequately studied. A lot of them are unregulated, or they might be regulated in some countries, but not others. So if we purchase something from a country where it's unregulated, now we're getting those chemicals, where here we think, oh, they're regulated, we can't have them in our stuff. And kind of on that same vein, they're inconsistently banned. So some things are legal in one place and illegal in another. So with that, I'll kind of hand it off to Jess, and she'll kick the rest.
All right. Not as much of a natural educator as Chris, so bear with me. So this, I took this image from my dissertation, and I think it's a really great image to show how plastic is classified. And it also describes just how complicated it can be to classify it, because there's so many different ways of going about it. So you can classify it by polymer type, which Chris talked about a few of those, classify it by the additives that are within it. Chris talked about a few of those as well. The type of product, the size, the shape or morphology, the color, or the various ecotoxins that are within it. So I'll get more into that a little bit later, but plastic can actually absorb chemicals from the environment, making it even more toxic. And to kind of go into the classification, primary versus secondary, this is probably one of the most prevalent distinctions used in literature. It's kind of shifting now more into classifying it by polymer type because it's more accurate. But originally, to tell if a particle was like a grain of sand or a piece of plastic, you would test it for hardness by like squishing it with a ballpoint pen, and kind of if it crackled, it was probably sand, and if it was kind of resistant and squishy, it was plastic. So we've come a long way from using that as a classification method. But a primary microplastic, you can see A and B on the left. A is a like a microbead, so you used to be able to find those in like face scrubs, cosmetic products. And then B, you have pre-production pellets. Those are called nurdles also. And so these are microplastics that are manufactured to be small. A secondary microplastic is a plastic that becomes microscopic in categorization after it's entering into the environment and it gets broken down. So it's fragmented and weathered in the environment. And you can see we have fibers, sheets, films, fragments, and foam. So now further, we can divide the issue of plastic in the environment into two ways: the physical particles themselves that cause problems, and also the chemicals that are associated with them. The physical particles themselves enter the environment primarily through improper waste disposal. So this can be directly via littering, or indirectly like rain and wind blowing trash from dumps or trash trucks, trash cans that have been knocked over, etc. This escaped plastic will enter the environment directly this way. and it makes its way further downstream into the ocean via storm drains and rivers. I'm sure you've seen the little signs that the Surfrider Foundation has provided on all of our storm drains. No dumping leads to ocean. Everything ends up in the ocean eventually. And so exposure to sunlight, wind, and waves will break this plastic down into smaller and smaller pieces, and that's how we end up with those secondary microplastics. And like Chris showed earlier in that image of the phytoplankton and the plastic, it's really hard for animals to distinguish the plastic from food. So that goes from the microscopic level all the way up to the classic example that I'm sure you've heard of with sea turtles and plastic bags that look exactly like jellyfish. So the physical pieces of plastic themselves can harm animals through entanglement and also ingestion. I'm sure you've seen photos of dead albatross or whales with plastic in their stomach. These animals die because they're malnourished, because their stomach is filled with plastic instead of food, and they don't even have a hunger cue to eat food. The second issue is the chemicals that are actually imbibed within that plastic. So it's a little less frequently discussed, but plastic has the ability to absorb chemicals from its surroundings and can carry them along their pathways. And I like to think of it as a sponge. So come with me on a journey, close your eyes, and imagine there's a bucket in front of you that's filled with dirty water, and you grab a fresh, clean sponge, squeeze it, and dunk your hand into the bucket of dirty water and release. And then take that sponge out, and when you squeeze it, all of this dirty brown water comes out of it. And that's exactly like the ability of plastic to absorb chemicals from the environment. So things like DDT that are still persistent in the environment have actually been found in plastic that, it wasn't in there from manufacture. So not only are animals and humans exposed to the plastics that are imbibed during the manufacture process, but they're actually become more and more toxic the longer they're in the environment. And so direct ingestion of this plastic will leach these chemicals during the digestion process. Stomach acids will cause these harmful compounds to leach out. And while the particle itself might get pooped out, most of them do, the chemicals that were originally in the particle might remain in your tissue. So it can cross through your gut barrier and end up in your bloodstream. Can bioaccumulate in your tissues. So to define bioaccumulation, that is when a toxin builds up into higher and higher concentrations as you travel up the food web. So here you can see my very skillful rendition of some copepods, which are a type of zooplankton, and they're surrounded in a matrix of various microplastics of different colors. And the zooplankton might mistake this plastic for food, and so it will ingest it. And these toxins that are in the plastic will be absorbed during that process and will persist in the tissues. A fish will eat a few of these zooplankton, probably hundreds, and now that fish will have some of the plastic that was in the organism, but it will also be absorbing the toxins that were transferred into the organism. And that process continues into the higher trophic level organisms. So you can think of tuna. The classic example of tuna has a high concentration of mercury. That's because mercury bioaccumulates in a similar way. And tuna is a very high trophic level organism. They're high on the food chain, and so are we. So we are directly exposed to plastic and its associated toxins by eating food that is contaminated. Both land and sea animals have the potential to carry the toxins associated with plastic. Plastic has been found in tap water, bottled water, sea salt, and even food that is stored in a plastic package will be contaminated by the packaging itself. So improper usage and storage of plastic products or products stored within plastic will even cause the chemicals to leach. So you've probably heard never pour hot water into a plastic cup. Don't put warm food into a plastic Tupperware. Don't microwave your food to reheat in a plastic Tupperware. Both the microparticles themselves will release, and then also the toxins from that plastic can transfer into your food. And cosmetic products also have the potential to absorb the chemical additives from their plastic containers. So soap, shampoo, lotion, the longer they're sitting in the plastic container, the more chemicals are in the product. The acidity of the product itself will also have an impact, whether you're storing it in cold versus heat. So there's so many different factors that can increase the amount of toxins that you're exposed to through those cosmetic products. And we're also breathing it in, so it's in the air. Chris mentioned synthetic fabric, so our clothes, polyester, nylon, you go like this and you can see a little cloud of dust come off of your shirt. If you're wearing something that isn't 100% cotton, those fibers are plastic, and you're breathing them right in. And it's in the headlines, right? So we see it's in human blood, it's in breast milk, it's in placentas, it's in our brain. Recently, we've seen things that show that it can cause Parkinson's, heart attack. Where we are exposed, it's everywhere. Ubiquitous, that's the word. And so plastic breaks down in the environment in mechanical, chemical, or thermal methods. I mentioned like wind and waves will physically break down the particles into smaller and smaller pieces. Chemical breakdown, like I mentioned, depending on like the acidity of a product. So if you have, I don't know, soap is base, but maybe you're using an acid for your exfoliation. And if your glycolic acid face product is in a plastic container, that acid will pull some chemicals out of your plastic container that it's in. And thermally, so I mentioned don't microwave your food in a plastic container, because the hotter the substance, the easier that plastic will leach its additives. And so, the end of the life cycle of plastic. So imagining that it doesn't all end up in the ocean or in landfills, what are we doing with this plastic, and how does it compare to the different products that we can kind of use to replace it with? So the worst is probably the multi-layered packaging. So these would be things like the almond milk that you see on the shelf at the grocery store that is not in the refrigerator section. It's got like a layer of paper, and there's foil and plastic, and it's really hard for that to be separated and properly recycled. And so if it is even recycled at all, it probably ends up being downcycled. And it's a lower quality product, and it actually has a higher risk of chemical migration once it becomes that lower quality product. Paper and cardboard are definitely better alternatives, but there is a lot of paper that's coated with plastic polymers. So if you've seen a shiny piece of paper, it's most likely not coated in wax like it used to be, but actually a thin layer of plastic. So a good example of a kind of risky paper would be receipts. That's a proven route of unwanted estrogen exposure. And the best materials for a closed loop recycling world are metal and glass. So they're infinitely recyclable. The products don't carry an increased risk of chemical exposure with each trip through the process. But I'm sure we've all seen these cups, right? The eco plastic green cups. These cups are made using an alternative source of oil, so maybe from corn or sugar as opposed to petroleum. But they create a polymer that's chemically identical to plastic, and these are the PLA cups. So if you've seen PLA, often it'll say other, and it'll have that little like chasing arrows sign around it. That's what that is made of. You can also use starch or cellulose and combine it with man-made polymers to make a similar thing. So is it biodegradable? But what does biodegradable even mean? Biodegradable is when a material can be broken down by a microorganism. into simple components like biomass, carbon dioxide, and water. So it's broken down into organic compounds that are recognized by nature versus compostable. So compostable means that it can biodegrade under very specific environmental conditions. So in an industrial compost, microorganisms will break down the matter with the help of humans who contribute water, oxygen, and heat. So when properly composted, plastic labeled as compostable will degrade into simple non-toxic substances, but you need that extremely high heat that's only available in industrial compost facilities. It does not biodegrade in a marine environment. It doesn't biodegrade in a landfill or a home compost, and you can't mix it with a mixed plastic recycling. And we don't have this type of composting in Orange County, and most places in the United States and the world don't offer this. So really it's such a greenwashing nightmare, because you think that you're doing something that is going to be helpful, but then it actually is so much worse because it contributes more methane during degradation in a landfill than an actual just regular old piece of plastic would. So my saying is, if it looks like plastic, treat it like plastic and try to avoid it.
Okay, yeah. So just really quick, we'll get this wrapped up. What can we do for solutions? So at the individual level, we can kind of get rid of using these single-use items and swap them out for reusable alternatives. So that's why, you know, we bring our own straws places, we bring our own utensils. If we're going out to dinner and we know that we're going to have leftovers, we bring our own Pyrex dish to bottle that stuff up, right? And then kind of, you know, use businesses like ours, use businesses like one of our sister stores next door, Philip Buttercup. So here at Amis Del Terra, we do all your food pantry staples. At next door, they do all their home and body stuff. So you can get your soaps, your shampoos, your detergents, and all of that stuff. So I would encourage you to seek out these types of businesses around you, support them. Usually they're small mom and pop businesses, but they're really helping to support the circular economy that we really need to switch into. What else can we do? We can kind of use our power to vote, right? So we can pay attention to bills that are coming up. So in California, we have a handful of assembly bills and Senate bills aimed at eliminating single-use plastics, filling in the gaps of the plastic bag ban. That was kind of a failure of legislation that kind of led to a worse problem. Now we're producing more plastic by weight in these plastic bags at the grocery store. So hopefully this 2236 and its companion bill 1053 in the Senate will address those and weed out those loopholes. We did have a reusable requirement for dine-in establishments that died in the Senate at the state level. But we do have some options. So I encourage you to look into those and contact your legislature and your representatives just to let them know that you support these ideas. At the federal level, we have some stuff too. Plastic pellet Free Waters Act is a really good one. It's aimed at limiting pre-production pellets, so those nurdles that we were talking about, and looking to eliminate point source pollution at large factories. Break free from plastic is a huge one. So we have it both in the House and in the Senate with another companion bill. This one's really nice. Look into it. I beg you, I beg you. This shifts the responsibility to plastic producing corporations. So kind of how it's set up right now, a corporation produces a plastic, you buy it, it's on you to make sure that it's recycled, and they are hands-free after that. This puts the entire life cycle of that product from cradle to grave into their hands, and they're responsible for it. So look these things up, support them where you can, and hopefully we can look forward to a better tomorrow. So yeah, so that's all we have. We'll take any questions if you guys have them. But otherwise, that's what we got for you today.
Boycott Pepsi, Coke, and Nestle.
I ask a question?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering, is there any way to recycle plastic utensils? Like through TerraCycle or any way that you know of?
We for a while were using TerraCycle in our store just because there's some, some products that we buy. We've tried, we buy everything in 25 or 50-pound bags, but some things we can't avoid getting in like a giant 50-pound bag that's a plastic bag. And so we were trying to think of something that we could do to kind of offset that. But we kind of lost faith in TerraCycle. They charge a lot of money for their box, and I don't really believe that they're doing anything with it. And that was kind of my only hope. Yeah,
so it's a tricky one with TerraCycle. A lot of news has come out where people are dropping air tags in their boxes and sending them off, and lo and behold, they end up in third world countries at incinerators, and they're just doing horrible things. As far as the single-use utensils are concerned, probably the least recyclable. People don't if they see a bin of recycling and there is identifiable single-use utensils in them, the load is fouled. It's not even worth them sorting, so they'll just toss the whole entire load into the landfill. And those a lot of times are the smaller pieces. I just say avoid them where you can, because chances are they're coming in a pack of 3, fork, knife, and your spoon. You're only going to use one of those things. It's packaged in cellophane. That cellophane is going to fly off into the park somewhere. So if they try to hand it to you, don't even touch it. Just say, we don't need it. And we're good without it.
Oh man,
do.
I can't tell you, like I start to cry. Sometimes I'll get like a takeout and I'll specifically say like no utensils, and you open the bag and they've put like 4.
Right, like they're
And
messing with you. They put extras in for you.
And I just want to just like I've actually driven back a few times and just put them on the counter, but it's
That's a good idea.
That is a good idea.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Actually, a 2-part question. It's around the same slide where you were talking about the 9%, maybe up to 17% by 1960. So the 9%, which, as I think you alluded to, is probably too high of a number. Isn't that around the time that we stopped shipping massive amounts of plastics to China and Turkey?
That's exactly that can be contributed to it. So yeah, about 2009. For the past 3 years, China said we're not taking any more. Yeah, 2019. Right. Sorry, I misspoke there. And that wasn't even a thing of us. Like, we're trying to unload it. We're like, everybody take it, and they're just saying we've got these mountains of trash accumulating. Like we no longer want it. But unfortunately, now Mexico is taking it. So we found other places to send it to. But chances are, I mean, it's tough. Like whose data do you take? And it's easy to cite a government entity. You would hope that their data analysis is robust. But there's a whole lot of studies coming out by these independent researchers and saying like, boy, you guys really shot those numbers up. Usually we operate within some kind of margin of error, and they'll a lot of people lean towards the side that gives them the better story, kind of a deal.
Of course, yeah, and I when I see the 17%, I think, of course, that's just a projection, right? But I think, as you also alluded to, I mean, there's really no way of knowing. And then the fact is that, a large percentage of this that does get shipped, there's not like an auditing trail. I mean, same with TerraCycle, right? I mean, the auditing trail has been really pretty lame, right? So we don't really know what happens.
I mean, it's all grassroots at this point. It's like people are tossing air tags into their bag and
I'm one of those people. So, because I bought the boxes too. So, and then I was also curious about the 4s, 5s, and 6s, that I was surprised that there was any. I mean, I don't know of anyone in this country really, except maybe a couple places that take 5s. I was just surprised that there were 2 and 3%.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. There's some facilities that'll run it, but we're really thinking about this idea of downcycling, where they're turning it
Right.
into a far inferior product. In fact, it's becoming like tar for the roads and stuff like that. So when you
Right.
think about recycling, you think about I'm taking this product and it's going to return to me in this product, but they're making, you know,
Some
environmentally
other,
harmful things with them anyway. And then they're saying, as long as it's being reused in some capacity, not ending up in the ocean, not ending up in the landfill, we're going to call it recycling. And like I said, for the longest time, burning trash to recover energy was a valid form of reuse. And yeah,
right.
it's horrible.
Yeah, so it sounds like we probably should just disassociate plastics with the word recycling
Yeah, yeah.
completely, right?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I mean, even here in in Orange County, I have to, as you can imagine, I'm at the recycling centers weekly, and it's like every month they're accepting fewer and fewer things, and they're like, that bottle's not coming in here anymore, you know. And it's just like,
Right,
what do we do? OCC not operating anymore. So
right.
yeah, it's becoming more and more difficult. But the companies are doubling down, and they're saying, by golly, it is recyclable, and it's not our fault that it's not being recycled, you know?
Mhm.
Right. Well, that was a terrific presentation. Thank you both. It was
Yeah,
great.
Can I ask one more question?
certainly.
So for like some of the just like food cans and like, you know, I don't know, Pepsi cans and stuff like that, are they like really plastic lined as well? Like should we just avoid those too?
Yeah, so unfortunately, because they would erode if they
Right.
weren't lined in plastic. So anything carbonated is acidic.
It's carbonic acid is
Yeah.
what it is.
And so if it wasn't lined in plastic, it wouldn't have a very long shelf life. And so pretty much any can that you get, even like a can of beans, is lined in plastic. And I've seen I saw a video where somebody used whatever compound that they dissolved the metal, and it literally there was like a little can of
Just a
soda
sticky,
like
yeah.
in a sack of plastic that was left after they dissolved the can outside. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I would say like the best thing to do for like beverages is glass bottles. Everyone loves like the Mexican Coke, you know. Again, it tastes better, it has cane sugar, and it's in a glass bottle. And we've got, you know, dried beans here, so you can avoid the
Yeah.
plastic lined can. But yeah, all cans are in, it's less plastic than would be, you know, if it was just in a plastic jug. But
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So where do all these silicone lids fit in that come, for our glass containers?
silicone's a tricky subject. So we use it, but you really have to think of it as it's not it's a replacement for a disposable single use, but it should be used over and over and over again for as long as possible. It's good because it's inert, so it won't leach toxic chemicals to you. But it does last a long time in the environment.
Okay.
So it does have that kind of double-edged sword where it's not necessarily something that's like a biodegradable alternative. But I think it's good if we live in a world where we need to store things in a refrigerator and a freezer, and it's a much better alternative than a plastic bag for things that
Sure.
happen. If you take good care of them, they should last a really long time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Were there questions in the chat? I think everybody was answering them while we were doing it. I was just kind of checking. But it seems like.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course, yeah.
I was told that if you walk along the beach, like a shoreline, that the amount of microplastics in the air is like there's an increase. Is that true?
Yeah. So it has a lot to do with that mechanical breakdown that we talked about because of wave action. So the waves have you know the plastic's there. You can see it at the high tide mark, right? So as those waves break, it's pounding into the sand. That sand is breaking it down into smaller and smaller pieces. Once you get to a small enough piece, then essentially it can like aerosolize, where it gets caught in like the sea spray. So then, you know, if you're breathing in it, when you're at the beach, you smell the air, it smells salty. That's because there's actual like saltwater particles in the air. That's what you're smelling. So now it's possible that this plastic can reach those small sizes, and essentially get in the air, and that's where you're exposed to it. The further away you get from the beach, you're getting away from this process. These particles begin to deposit, but that's kind of where you kind of have the highest rate of incidence. Yeah.
I never
That's
thought
really
about
bad
that,
news.
but it makes sense.
So depressing.
That
That
is-
you go to the beach to feel the healing ions of the sea, and it's just plastic.
Oh my
Well,
God.
it's everywhere, so you know.
Yeah.
You're breathing it in anyway. That can cheer you up.
Jess, that was a great analogy, by the way, with the sponge.
Thank you.
Because
I
I
wrote an
tried to
op-ed with that.
That was really good because it's hard to explain to people. And I love that analogy. That really was a good visual and a good way to sort of like explain why plastic becomes more toxic over time.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
You know, another time that we are doing our little plastics lesson with Surfrider and you guys are down there, will you take a look at our lesson and tell us like
Oh yeah, certainly.
if there's something we could add to it or take out, or
Yeah, I mean,
that would be helpful.
you guys got more people coming by your table than I did, so I might as well come
But
over
we
and help you
learned we
guys,
have to
yeah.
drag them over. That's what we were doing. It's a two-person job. One person drags them over to play our game, and then the other person does the presentation. That's how we did it. Right?
That's awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much for having us. I hope, I mean, looking at the faces here, I know a lot of you, and I'm not so sure that, you know, I feel like you guys are already kind of in the know, but I hope we were able to at least help out with maybe your educational outreach or what you guys know. But
We
yeah,
learned a lot. I mean, there's
glad to be
so
part of it.
much that you told us that I had no idea. I mean, some
Absolutely.
idea, but not enough. So thank you so much. Very
Yeah.
informative.
Absolutely.
So
And,
great.
if you guys ever need our help again, we're only an email away.
Okay. And
Yeah.
we'll get the word out for
Okay.
people to hear your presentation and go to your
And to
store.
go to their
We're all
store.
joined together.
Yeah.
And to shop at their store. because
Absolutely.
I have now successfully convinced my husband, who does most of the shopping, that we will not buy any more dry goods anywhere except Amis Del Terra.
Yay.
So you'll be seeing a lot more of us. I was
Perfect.
a little outside of my control because he'd come home with all this stuff from Whole Foods. I'm like,
Yeah,
so
Jess's stepdad just goes to
Gelson.
Gelson's, goes to Costco all the time. And we're like, come on, like
My mom
it's
is
in the
like,
family.
yeah.
Like, over here.
right.
Buy like a plastic thing in nets, and my mom was like, I'm going to Jessica's store. Like, what are you doing? Why did
And they have everything, you guys. I mean, I have yet to
Yes.
find like they have so much stuff behind the counter, all the spices. You could just buy what you need.
And you
Save your
can buy
spice
those
jars.
chocolate things with the cherry inside.
I had some of those a couple hours ago.
Oh my God. Bring in
and
a bigger
olive oil,
container for
maple
that.
syrup, you name it. They've got it all. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's such an amazing resource right in our backyard.
Yeah.
Thank you
Totally
guys.
is.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll
Thank
see everybody
you.
soon.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll be there. Bye.
Thank you.
Au revoir.
Bye, everybody.
Au revoir. See.
À tout à l'heure.
À bientôt.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was
You want me
terrific.
to Copy the,
Oh,
I usually manually copy it.
I
Oh,
saved
the
it.
chat.
Could you save it? Because it doesn't always copy when it says it's going to, so I'm gonna manually copy it if I can.
Okay.
Okay, I did that.
Night.
Good
That was
night,
a
everybody.
great session.
Yes, that was great. That was great. I'm
Yeah.
just not going to breathe as deep when I'm surfing now.
My God, I know that's so depressing.
Isn't it? Oh,
And
well.
one thing I just want to say, I mean, I'm happy to give presentations. So,
Oh.
you know, I have a green business too. I mean, I have a
Ah,
California green business and I'm a consultant. So in fact, I actually worked with Jessica and Chris and had them, you know, review an article I just wrote on
oh,
plastics.
really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, and they gave me some good pointers, mostly just tone and things like that. But at least most of the stuff I had was correct. But you know, I'm happy to do presentations. So
Oh,
just think of
cool.
me if there's ever opportunities to do that.
Okay.
I mean, I can table, of course, as well, but I'm very comfortable giving presentations. I did it for 28 years at Oracle.
Right. At where, pardon?
At Oracle, I worked at Oracle.
Oh, gosh,
Yeah.
my nephew worked at Oracle. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I quit 2 years ago to focus on this full time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
anyway,
Okay. So that would be great. And if we, you know, we're hoping we get more opportunities for presentations. I mean, whenever we do one, it connects so many people. You know what I mean?
totally.
Which is really great.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. And I mean, you know, I'm happy. I'll try to sign up. I know that there are a few of the events. I've just been traveling a lot.
no,
So,
no, that's okay.
but I'll try to sign up. I did the veg thing with Linda last year.
Oh,
Veg
cool.
Fest.
I
But
saw you in the pictures. Yes,
yeah.
I did.
I had a lot of fun. But you know, I think I might be able to do the Pretend City. I'm definitely really interested in talking to children. So
Yeah.
um,
That'll be interesting because, you know, the center is designed for first through 1-year-old to 8-year-olds.
right.
But they said this day is really more of a family thing. So what we're trying to do is our same plastic presentation, because they're putting us right by someone else from Surfrider that is doing a watershed demonstration. And it totally goes together because that is our big message. It's not just the people leaving their trash on the beach. It's
Right.
coming from the watershed, right? It's coming
Right.
from everything ends up there. So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting. I've never been there. My kindergartners, when I was a principal, they went there every year. So
Yeah, I never heard of it because my kids didn't grow up here. So
Right.
until recently, because I have friends that have their kids so Pretend City. I'm like, what is that?
I know. It's an educational Lego. No,
Yeah.
Legoland, right? It's educational.
Oh my
Anyways,
gosh.
thank you so much for coming tonight.
Yeah, I'm trying to come to as many of them as I can. So
Okay.
it was a great session. They're
Well,
just a great
we'll
pair.
We'll keep up the fight.
Totally. All right, have a
See
good
ya.
night.
Okay,
See
you
ya.
too. Bye.
Bye.